Ladies and gentlemen, we're calling the meeting to order 3:01. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is to approve the consent agenda, which was distributed. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as printed or distributed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next on our agenda becomes then citizens' comments. Are there any citizens?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
I would
yes.
ask if we could, and we have Amy Evans is here to present on the, if we could move her ahead of citizen comment,
Oh, sure.
just so that we can be cognizant of her time. Yes.
You mean she doesn't want to stay for the full meeting and enjoy everything that we do?
Man, I
Just
wish I
kidding.
could.
Good afternoon, Ms. Evans, please.
Good afternoon. As
Is the
Aaron
mic
said-
on? Green light?
Yes,
Okay,
green light,
beautiful.
yes. Do I need to get closer?
No,
Can
no,
you
you're
all
good.
hear me? Okay. As Aaron said, my name is Amy Evans. I was the auditor in charge of fieldwork for the audit this year. So what you have in front of you should be the blueback audit report, and then there's also a letter. I'll go over that letter in just a little bit. But if we could turn to page 3, I'd like to start with the independent auditor's report. And just so everyone knows, this report, along with the 2 reports in the back of the report, of the audit report, which are the government auditing standards and the uniform guidance or the single audit report, those are the only parts of the financial statement that are ours. The rest of the financial statements are management's responsibility, which we'll go over in this letter in just a second. So I just want to touch on some higher level items here instead of reading to you the entire report. The very first paragraph here, we have our opinion. We have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Erie, which is a component unit of the City of Erie, as of and for the year ended December 31st, 2022. The next paragraph talks about our opinion. So in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of the Redevelopment Authority as of December 31st, 2022. In other words, a clean opinion, which is what you want to hear. The next paragraph talks about our basis for opinion. So we have conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to the financial audits contained in government auditing standards. That's one of those reports that I spoke about in the back of this packet. If we move down to the responsibilities of management for the financial statements, I'd like to read that first paragraph there. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements. Then if we turn over to page 4, it talks about the auditor's responsibility for the audit. And our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion, which is the opinion on the first page that I just read to you. So then you'll see there in the next paragraph, it talks about in performing an audit in accordance with GAS, or generally accepted auditing standards, we exercise professional judgment, identify and assess the risks of material misstatement, obtain an understanding of internal control at the authority, evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies, and then conclude whether there are conditions or events that are considered that raise a substantial doubt for going concern, which we don't have any of those concerns. So those are the things that I wanted to touch on with the report. So if we could turn to page, I'm going to have you skip ahead a few pages here to page 11. This is really the meat and potatoes, the numbers that we want to look at here. So on page 11, our statement of net position, our total current assets are $10,927,000. Our total non-current assets, which include property and equipment, and then less the accumulated depreciation, are $110,000. So our total assets are $11,037,000, almost $11,038,000. Our total liabilities are just under $10,960,000. And then we have our net position of $78,980, again for a total liabilities and net position of $11,037,000. So just a couple things I wanted to point out there. You'll note that our cash and unearned revenue are quite high this year. They're over $10 million. That's because of the ARPA funds that came in 2022. And so the reason that's unearned revenue right now is just because the money came in and hasn't been spent. So we just moved that over into unearned revenue. Does anybody have any questions on page 11?
I have a quick one.
Sure.
So what would qualify something as restricted cash versus unrestricted cash or cash equivalent?
Restricted cash would be, it's based on really those individual grant agreements. So if the, for example, the ARPA purposefully said in that grant agreement that they had to be restricted funds and only used for X, then those would be restricted. I know that those funds, or those ARPA funds are used for ARPA expenses, but they're not necessarily restricted. So we don't, we would categorize those as unrestricted.
Okay.
It's very specific in those different grant agreements.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so if we turn over to page 12, again, just going to hit the higher levels here. So our total governmental activities, sorry, I'm going to have to put on my glasses. Our expenses were $2,400,000, and our program revenues are split between charges for services of $13,000 and our operating grants and contributions of just over $2,400,000. We also have total general revenue consisting of interest income and some other income of $57,000, which gives us a change in net position, a positive change in net position of just over $20,000. So our net position, as I noted before, is $78,980. If we turn back just a few pages to page 17, that's where our notes to the financial statements start. There aren't any significant changes to these. They would look very similar to last year's notes if you were to look at those. Nothing new, up and coming, nothing was added to these notes that wasn't here in previous years, so I won't go over those unless anybody has any questions on those. Pages 26 and 27, pages 28 through, I think it's 30, are those other reports that I had talked about when we first went over the independent auditor's report. That's the reports for government auditing standards and the reports for uniform guidance, which is the single audit, which would be the report over any of the federal funds that are received. So just on page 31, I wanted to note, you'll see there that this year the federal program that we focused on was the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. That's federal assistance listing number 21.027. So just yearly based on the size and the dollar amount, we focused on that program this year. And then on page 34 and 35, that is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So this is the information that gets reported to the federal government. And you'll see that federal expenditures were just over $1.5 million, and the majority of that, again, actually the majority of that would be the lead hazard reduction demonstration grant this year. Before I go to the letter, does anybody have any questions on the report or on the numbers? If you do, as you're looking forward and looking through it and you have any questions, you can always, let Aaron know and he can get in touch with us or contact us so we can answer any questions that you may have. So the other information in your packet is what we like to call our board letter. It's our letter to you. And just a few things. It just kind of details any significant risk that we've identified, any significant difficulties encountered during the audit, and any disagreements with management. We didn't have any of that, so you'll see that in this letter. We did note in here in 2022 there was small size to the office. There was just really one person in charge of handling the financial transactions, but I know that with the addition of Tracy, things are shifting a little bit. So that's really in here just because it was the 2022 report. So moving forward, we probably won't have that recommendation anymore.
Any other questions or observations?
So for the schedule of findings and question costs, you did not have to report on any federal program with expenditures of over $750,000, just one selected?
So we normally do have to report on anything over $750,000. However, because we have audited the LHRD grant for the past 3 or 4 years and had no issues,
Okay.
the federal government has identified anything related to COVID, which would be ARPA, the provider relief funds, anything like that. They've identified those as high risk. So if we have a low risk program, which would be the LHRD grant, and we had no issues with that, then we assess those that are under $750,000. And if it's high risk, we have to assess it and take a look at it.
Got it.
So because it was high risk, that's the program that we were able to, or that we had to look at this year.
Okay, thank you.
So normally, we wouldn't look at something that is under $750,000 because obviously it doesn't meet that threshold, but because the federal government identified it as high risk, that's why we looked at that one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That's all I have.
When I reviewed earlier today, I note, and this is just an FYI for us, and this
Sure.
is more for Mr. Snippert, is our defined pension plan or the contributions, and I think that's just a reminder for us to take a look at the whole compensation package for the whole authority to ensure that we're being consistent and current, going forward. That the 2% seemed low to me, but we should take a look at that as a.
And we had amended after January the 457B compensation plan to a 4-to-4 match.
To a
4% match.
Oh, much better. All right. This is from last year, of course.
Right,
All
yes.
Thank you. I
Yes.
just want to make sure. Okay, that's good. That's a good thing then.
And
So-
we'll talk about that under
Perfect.
my report as well.
Yeah, I just want to make sure our personnel was being taken care of as well as with all the other growth in with the
Absolutely.
organization. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
That's good.
Is there a motion to accept the report as presented? I believe that's the correct motion.
Yep.
How am I doing? Pretty good, huh? So,
Doing great.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for a second. I got all excited.
Do you have a second?
You have a second over here? All right, so it carries then. Thank you. And thank you very much for your time. Any
Okay.
questions, you can direct them after this meeting directly to our auditing team. We appreciate your time. Want to thank Mr. Snippert and his staff for, this
Yes,
is
definitely.
a lot of work.
It is.
And yeah, and with the additional funding, of course, a lot more things to report
Yes.
on and so on.
Yes.
So we appreciate everyone's help.
Yes. Thanks, Amy.
Great.
If you need anything,
Nope,
let me know.
you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're back to citizens' comments, and any citizens to be heard, we'd like to, please come forward. You can address the board. We are imposing a five-minute limit, 5 minutes, just like city council. So if you could be as concise as possible, so please come forward and state your name, address, and any comments you have.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name is
afternoon.
Donald Crenshaw. I'd like to say that, first of all, thank you guys for getting the report out, because as I look across other communities and areas, as far as reporting and documentation, and I actually sit on the county's planning commission board, and we were talking about funding last Thursday, and some of the housing funding going to the land bank, and we had shared that there's some funds internally that's going to be going out into the rural areas, as you mentioned, Mr. Scalise, that they're going to be going out, and they were sort of shocked. It was like, well, we're giving money to the city. And I said, well, from a land bank standpoint, we ought to look at that because to see whose dollar's going where. And part of that is when we look at these reports that you just received, it's good to be able to track something in writing and see. So I look forward to being able to review the accounting and documentation of funding and where it's going. I also would like to recommend to the board, Pittsburgh and the Redevelopment Authority and the land banks and all have every dollar that's come in online. You can see who got it, where it went, that I would suggest that you guys look at that and maybe mimic some of the things as far as transparency, the way it's being done in other areas. Last Wednesday, I was invited to EMTA meeting regarding federal dollars, and I was instructed that every federal dollar going through EMTA now, that they have a 40% mandate minority requirement. We actually did phase one, all of the heating systems in that particular building, and we've done other buildings throughout the community. I've grown up as a developer through minority requirements on projects in the community. Right now, I don't know of any, but I was shocked that EMTA was calling all minorities out to say that the federal government is mandating a 40% minority requirement. I ask you as board members and directors to look into that and see why is it mandated in some federal dollars and it's not mandated in others. And I look at it across the city. I think we need to do a better job with our minority involvement, because it was that has made me who I am in being able to do and present some of the things to you guys that I want to give you now. I had forwarded last Friday a letter that is asking for a relationship to be formed in more depth and detail, and I don't know if everybody's had time to look at it, but I just would follow up to say I look forward to maybe meeting with the board and the director to work out some sort of arrangement so that we can address some of the blighted properties throughout the community that I own. And what I'd like to share right now is several houses along Buffalo Road. All of the houses north of Meadowbrook Dairy, 7 of them are owned by me. We've renovated them all. They'll go online probably this week. We renovated them with trainees, and I'm going to pass this out so you guys can at least just look at it. Who would I hand it to? Or you look through there, there's several documents, but what it shows is some renovation that's taken place. And that renovation you can actually see, and I know from the standpoint of time and time being of essence, we started renovating that project, or those houses, about 4 years ago when Erie Insurance started a training program. We took individuals, and if you look in there, you'll see roofs being taken off and done by individual minorities in the city. And strange enough, almost 4 years later, we're just finishing them. The first thing we did was to go in and be able to put a roof on. And then between then and now, we've been chasing funding. You probably saw and was aware that GMA just received fair funds, which we haven't received the dollars just recently, that we applied 3 years ago, but we're getting them. As the money comes in, we're fixing up these houses. As a committed developer, we're doing everything we can do. With the funding that's available now and a cooperative agreement, I think we can expedite a lot of the blighted properties. I think we can continue to train a lot of our youth. I think we can make a difference in this community. So I'm asking the board, and again, the Blighted Property Committee, to look and sit down with me, and let's sit down, not here at this meeting, take some time, have a document, not just verbal back and forth, but a document that commits me, holds me accountable to timelines and things to be done, as well as I ask for whatever funding that is available out here. We did the only homeownership program in the city of Erie where we wrote down houses by $70,000. 140,000 development, we sold them to 25 individuals in this community for $70,000. With all of the funding that's there now in the layering team, we can make a difference in Erie. We just have to sit down, go through a document. We can do restrictive deed covenants so there's no windfalls. I've been asking the Redevelopment Authority at time and time for funding to come together, like home funds. We had $1.5 million in home funds in Zoe Meadows. $1.5 million. They went to the homeowners. So
5 minutes.
I appreciate the time, and if there's anything we can sit down and do in the future, I ask that we do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens to be heard today? Very good, thank you. On to item C on our agenda, which is our financial report. I know that we accepted our audit, but we have additional our balance sheet and operational statements to review as well.
Sorry. So in your packet, you are going to find the statement of activity or the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and a list of checks dispersed in July. It's listed as check detail. Our account balance in race on July 31st was $65,867.71. Our total bank assets was $10,592,921.64. We're waiting for a $94,908.28 is in invoices. And finally, our total assets are $11,630,018.30. I just briefly wanted to bring your attention to the profit and loss. We have been making some changes within our QuickBooks. We had a conversation with the auditors, and Amy's boss, Natalie Everline, who is a partner in the firm, suggested to us that we look into something called classes. And so that's what we're doing right now. Unfortunately, this is the first time in all of the research I have done, all of the research April has done, that we heard about that, but we have implemented that. And the hope is that for all future expenses, there won't be any, we'll no longer have issues with expense duplication.
Nice.
That's in the future.
Is that, I'm assuming that's a longer term project. That's nothing that you're going to be able to spin around on. So,
Something, we can't go back and fix the last 7 months
okay.
without a substantial burden on the staff.
Okay.
But moving forward, we can make those adjustments and changes in process to make the financial statements a little bit easier to read and understand.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we would expect for January 1st, beginning of our next operating year to be pretty much up and running with the...
That's our hope, and
Okay.
I would hope, quite frankly, that in the next month or two, you're going to see a better picture of accuracy not accuracy, but in the last 30 days.
Okay.
So,
And as I've mentioned before, anytime we could have a comparison to our budget to actual, that would be a very happy day for all of us then.
yeah, I promise we're working really, really hard
I
on
understand.
it. It's just,
I understand.
yes, it's been a project.
Good to have goals out there. So.
Yeah.
Anything else in terms of your presentation on our financials?
I don't have anything else. Do you
Okay.
all have any questions for me?
Any questions? Good. Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the financial reports as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. On to item D, which is the report of the Executive Director, Mr. Snifford.
All right, thank you. Before the audio guy gets on me. All right, so in front of you is the property report for June and July 2023. Under property acquisition is listed the properties that condemnation action was completed in June. That will have to be amended. The April 28th date is incorrect. It was June 21st, I believe. If I'm shooting off the top of my head, I will make that revision. But those properties, condemnation action has been filed against, and Gene and his team are working through compiling the list of preliminary objections from property owners or contested condemnees on those properties. Property disposition, there's some pending sales agreements there. We met with Gene and his team last week to go through kind of the processes moving forward and try to streamline a few things and clear up some of the little things that have been slowing us down over the last few months. So Gene is working diligently to do that. So that property report is there for your review, and a resolution to accept the property report with the amended condemnation date.
And we think that date is June.
I believe it is June. I believe it is June 21st.
Okay. Mr. Stipper's report's been presented. Are there any questions? We have a resolution to accept the report as presented then. Is a motion to accept?
I guess I move to accept the report with the caveat that the date be corrected.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll take them all then. All those in favor, aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Any general information?
All right, so update, the Historic Preservation Grant Program is moving forward. We have successfully finalized 4 projects and put through payment requests on those. We're working closely with the City of Erie to kind of streamline that process. There has been some hiccups through that application process to the HRC review, so we're working diligently to get that streamlined and cleaned up. It looks like right now we have enough applications to fully expend that program if all of those go through, but we're kind of slowing that up a little bit and trying to review that process. As with any new programs, there's always some growing pains, so we're just trying to make sure that we're being the best stewards of that program as we can be, working with the city's Historic Preservation Planner and the Historic Review Commission. Love Your Block is a program that I know Aaron knows a lot about, city program. They provide some services across many different neighborhoods. The Redevelopment Authority is going to volunteer as a staff September 1st in the Academy Marvintown neighborhood to help just kind of do some volunteering, some outreach toward the neighborhood. So certainly any board member is welcome to volunteer as well with us, but we will be there assisting in the Academy Marvintown neighborhood on September 1st as the authority. And then lastly, there's 2 RFPs currently out on our website and due August 24th. That is the Human Resource Consultant RFP as requested by the board, so that is there. We've submitted or requested proposals from several local firms along with advertising that to see what our reach will be. Already received some questions that we're providing responses to, and we will have those published by August 21st on the website as well. We've also put out again the fiscal consultant RFP. So we do have one person who has reached back out to get some clarification and ask some questions. So that appears that we will have at least one person this time. I know if you remember, we did put that out twice last year and failed to receive any responses to that. So it's looking a little bit more promising this time. We have reached out to several, so we're hoping that we'll have some favorable response to that as well. So that's my general report.
And I'd like to thank the authority and the staff particularly for going over and above to National Night Out and other things. We've been kind of following you folks on social media then, so it's a little extra work, but it looked like it was very rewarding, and you're making a lot of connections to the community. Well, super important to us, of course, to be available. So thank you for the extra work.
Thank you.
Any questions for Aaron? Great, thank you. Let's see, on to our solicitor's report, Mr. Sundberg.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
In front of you, you have the report. The appeals in the Commonwealth Court, one of them is no longer in limbo. The 2 properties went up together. The one for on Easterling, that has been found in our favor. We are waiting. I called the Commonwealth Court this afternoon to find out. You try to not upset them, but you're going, okay, we got an order in July in our favor on this. When are you going to send the record back so that we can take it to the next level? And they said they customarily wait 60 days to make sure that there isn't any subsequent filings. I'm confident that there's not going to be any because there was an appeal, but there was nothing else filed with regard to the Easterling. Watford is the same situation. There was an appeal, but they didn't file any documentation. I've received notification that they're going to have 3 judges review the record. Well, there isn't any record other than mine that was sent to the appellate court, the Commonwealth Court. So I'm anticipating that that's going to come back as well. But really the delay is in getting the record back so that I can take the next and final step with Judge Piccinini. There are a couple of matters that I'm waiting for. 2708 Downing, I'm waiting to hear from the judge. Also on 934 West 17th Street and 602 West 9th Street, we're waiting to hear from decisions with regard to the judge on those matters as well, so that we can determine how best to proceed forward. 221 Locust Street, this was there was a board of view that was requested prior to the actual hearing itself. They did hire an appraiser, came back with an appraised amount. We were able to amicably resolve that. We've prepared the deed, sent that to the bank, which I think is out of the state of Washington, to sign the deed transferring all right, town interest to the Redevelopment Authority so that we can make the disbursement of the funds and get the property back, raise that property, and prepare the lot or lots for sale to the adjacent property owners. So we're making significant progress in that, and we owe that to the community, especially that neighborhood. So I feel good about that. There was a group of condemnation actions filed in March. We are waiting the time frame so that we can have the hearing on the. We've had the hearing on the preliminary objections. We want to hear the valuation. There have been 6 where they have objected to the filing of the condemnations. And again, we get back to a situation where people are kind of jumping the gun a little bit. They're filing preliminary objections thinking that, oh, it has some value. Well, that's the next step. So we're trying, and again, what we're doing, and when we had lunch and met with Aaron and Mindy and Jake, is we're educating the community now, because we're doing a lot of these. So people are getting more involved, which is fine, but it's taken a little bit more time because they're jumping ahead to the valuation when there's a step before that. So, and that's okay. We're working through that. It's just slowing the process down a little bit on our end, but we're trying to be diligent and push this forward. So there's 6 of those, and I think that there was 20 some that we filed. So so we're making progress there. Now, I want to kind of take a deep breath on 1221 Buffalo Road. This has a long, long history. And when I've met with my staff a couple of times, it started way back in 2008, I want to say, maybe even 2000.
We filed condemnation in 2014.
2014.
It was blighted in 2008.
Even before my involvement. And then they entered into different agreements that weren't fulfilled. And even most recently, another one that wasn't fulfilled. So that's now being terminated. And then what I'm doing now is to file an amended, not to clean the slate, because I don't want to have to go all the way back and get board approval and go through all that process. Let's file an amended petition, and I'll go through the whole chronology of the history of the agreements and why it's taken so long, because knowing that when you're in front of Judge Piccinini, he's crossing T's and dotting I's, and he wants to know everything, how we got to where we are, and that's fine. So we're going to be filing an amended petition, laying out all of that so that we can get these hearings set and get it taken care of. This property is not getting better with time. I've been through it. Jake was kind enough to help me go see it, and it's a problem. It's a problem. And again, we owe more to our city with regard to that area and that property. So that's on my radar to get done here. Enough's enough. what we had done before, and you'll see number 6 is a procedure after the condemnation. After the condemnation, and again, we talked a little bit about this, still of record are, municipal liens, back taxes, and all of a sudden we may have raised the property and want to and sell it, get it to the land bank to sell it, but they're still of record. And there are title companies who are rightfully concerned and kind of freaking out about it. Look, okay, we see the condemnation action that extinguishes all those, but Gene, why are these still of record? So that's why I had the meeting with the solicitor for the Tax Claim Bureau. I had the solicitor for the assessment office, tried to get City Hall involved, but we're all working together to see if we can get those removed that we've already done so that we can move forward with these transactions. And then also the batch that we have coming is to more define in our order, our final order of condemnation, much like what happens when you have tax sales, is that order spells out and directs the row offices what to do and how to, and directing them to remove the back taxes, delinquent taxes, remove the municipal liens and such as part of the order, so that I can send that to them, have them take care of it, and then we can turn around and sell it quicker. That's kind of been our problem with a number of these. We've finished the condemnations, but then we're kind of strangled off in getting it to the third parties. One of the meetings, this past meeting, why I was so happy to do it, it's taken me 7 months to find a replacement paralegal that has the ability to handle what we're doing, and also that has real estate background, so that our transactions don't get dumped in with the other real estate matters that we have going on, that I don't want to say don't have the same priority, but are taking a little bit more time to get done. I finally have that person. She's excellent. Quite frankly, my longtime paralegal helping me on these matters, Christina Allen, has said, Gene, she knows more than me, and I've been doing this with you for the past 4 years. So it's like a 100-pound weight lifted off of my shoulders that, hey, look, we're going to be able to be more proactive, especially after the condemnation matter. That's what's frustrating to me, and I know to the office here, is that it's taken time to get it to the third parties, which is what our ultimate goal is here. So I think that we're moving in the right direction. There are the commercial condemnations in July have been filed. There's a number of those, and then we are literally finishing up the August 2023 condemnations. Title searches are all back. Was reviewing those last night and Saturday night when the storms came in. So we're making progress. I have someone who's working shoulder to shoulder with me, pushing me to get these done. So I think we're really in a really good position, not only to finish the condemnations that are in the pipeline, but also once the condemnations are done, to get them out to third parties. So that's kind of where we are. Lot going on, and I'm excited about the process. Any questions? Don't be bashful.
No. Well, I'm excited on behalf of the citizens of Erie and our community. Thank you for moving these ahead.
Yeah.
Nobody should live in a neighborhood with deteriorating properties, for very long. We should be able to step in, get them in responsible hands, get them refurbished or taken down.
I agree. That's our goal. That's our purpose here, and I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
Jane, I'm not going to tell you her name, who I hired.
I've got people.
Sources, I know that.
He already sent her a letter.
Letter, he stopped by, I heard. All right, thank you, appreciate that. Let's see, unfinished business, we've got blighted property process, I see we got
All
a
right.
slide queued up, and
So with the comment, and of course, with all of Gene's action and everything that's been happening, I felt it kind of needed to kind of go over the blighted property process with the board. The authority serves two main purposes: housing rehabilitation assistance for property owners and landlords and such. City of Erie County, so I always say we focus on both sides of blight. We help people fix deferred maintenance items in hopes that those properties will remain sustainable, occupied, and tax paying. We want to stop them from getting to the point where they're vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties. But we also work on the blighted property process. So, the blighted property process, it starts with code enforcement. They work through their process of notice of violations. They try to gain voluntary compliance through the process. They identify, they receive a complaint of a vacant property, and they act on it. They go out, they look at it, they put together a notice, and they send it to the property owner. They give them 30 days typically to make the repairs to the property. And that's the first step in, like I said, gaining that voluntary compliance. They're looking for that property owner to reach out, work with them, maybe it's ask for more time, but make the repairs to the property. Certainly we want every property to be rehabilitated and back into some level of occupied status, whether it be rental, owner occupancy, whatever the case will be. So, this is just kind of the process map we have that we work off of for this, and really for the citizens' understanding of the process. So, code enforcement works through that, and I always say really the redevelopment authority falls at the end of this process. We are really the enforcement arm of blighted property. So when code enforcement can't gain voluntary compliance, it goes to the Blighted Property Review Committee. Cynthia, you can go next slide. So notice of violation, of course, this is what is sent to a property owner. Next slide, Cynthia. Of course, if there's no response to the notice of violation, they're issued a citation and they're set a day in court with the district magistrate for that area. Most cases it's not necessarily successful, or it is they're fined $500 or whatever the case will be, but necessarily the district magistrate is not getting us a rehabilitated property. So it's really, the point is trying to work with these property owners before we get to our point. You can go. So the Blighted Property Review Committee, just for City Council ordinance in 1994 created the Vacant Property Review Committee pursuant to the Urban Redevelopment Law, same act that created the redevelopment authorities across the state of Pennsylvania. In 2002, they amended it to be the Blighted Property Review Committee. So next slide. All right, so the committee is made up of 9 members. One city council person, so the liaison to the BPRC is a voting member of the Blighted Property Review Committee. The executive director of the Redevelopment Authority, a representative of the City of Erie Planning Commission, the mayor of the City of Erie or his or her designee, and then 4 adult citizens from the City of Erie appointed by City Council for 2-year terms. So when you look at it, the majority of the members of the BPRC are citizen elected, City Council member and 4 citizens. So they have the majority vote on the BPRC. Of course, non-voting members, supervisor of the City of Erie Housing Office, or City of Erie Housing Officer, manager of the City of Erie Code Enforcement Officer, chief of the City Fire Department, the Police Department, and of course the director of the Tax Claim Bureau. And these meetings are the second Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. And at that point, we review properties that code enforcement recommends for blight. So this is really the process where the redevelopment authority gets involved. A property is put in front of the BPRC. Does it meet the qualifications of blight? If so, then it is declared blighted and it moves into the redevelopment authority's hands to issue the notice of notice of blight and put that through, and it gets posted by code enforcement. Go to the next slide. So the blight standards, there's really 9 levels of blight, and in order for the BPRC, and that's kind of where the confusion gets sometimes, the BPRC is voting on whether or not the property meets one of these 9 conditions. That is their sole job, is the information that is presented to say that yes, it does meet one of these 9 criteria. So it only has to meet one for the BPRC to declare it as blighted, which in most cases a property will meet multiple, if not almost all of them at any given point. So it's pretty much, you know, which one do you want to pick if you really had to pick one? Next one. So that's just the rest of it. All right, next. Okay, so the blight process, and really it just kind of summarized what I had said, is that, you know, code enforcement, have they exhausted all their action? It goes to the BPRC. Was the property declared blighted? Yes, the property owner is notified by mail. The owner is given 20 days to appeal. So the notice of blight gives the property owner, basically it's a 30-day notice that the redevelopment authority can take action on the property. They're given 20 days to appeal that decision, which at what point they would fill out the appeal paperwork, we would convene the BPRC committee, and they would be able to testify on their behalf why their property doesn't meet one of those 9 criteria. Every time somebody wants to appeal, we certainly have that discussion with them. You know, make sure you understand, yes, if you're spending the $600 appeal fee, that you are aware that you are trying to say it doesn't meet this status. It's not tax delinquent, it's not vacant and deteriorate, you know, like, so before they would spend that money to appeal, just understand that, you know, that's what they're weighing their review against when you appeal. Next. So this is the notice of blight. Like I said, there's a 30-day notice. At the 30 days within it, 20 days to appeal. After 30 days is the point under the law that the redevelopment authority can seek condemnation or the blight process with it. And there's a lot more too than just after 30 days we would say we're filing condemnation on it. Next slide. So after the 30-day period, the property is certified. So any property that would come before the Redevelopment Authority Board under resolution has to be declared blighted by the City of Erie Planning Commission. So we put together paperwork, a kind of a detailed plan process for the property, and present it to the Planning Commission. Okay. Once that resolution is approved by the Planning Commission, it is only at that point that then we can get a resolution in front of the Redevelopment Authority Board to seek condemnation of the property. So this is just kind of a timeline of the pre-condemnation steps, and just so the board understands, this process doesn't happen in 30 days. And in most cases, it doesn't happen in 90 days. So, you know, the blight designation, they have 20 days to appeal. We have 30-day wait period before. We issue a pre-condemnation letter to the owner, usually a 14 days to respond. The Planning Commission and Race Board approval estimated at 1 to 2 months. So on the shortest period from blight designation to condemnation, a homeowner has approximately 109 days to respond to the redevelopment authority. So that's in any capacity. So if a property followed the process to the letter and did not respond, it would take us 109 days to file the declaration of taking. And Gene can attest that most cases that's not the case. And I provided the current blighted property list in your board packets, and you can go through there and see some of the dates that the committee declared those properties blighted, and see how long some of those have been on the list. Next slide. So this is the big one for blighted property owners. And keep in mind, when a property is blighted, it's still under the control of the property owner, and it means nothing more than we have put a lien, in essence, on the property that says that it has been declared blighted by the Blighted Property Review Committee, so that it would show up during a title search if they were, you know, a title search was pulled and they were trying to transfer ownership of the property. So once they're notified, if a property owner reaches out to us, it is our intent to get that property rehabilitated. So hence the statement for intent to renovate a blighted property. This is a document that kind of goes through. We want them to fill it out. We want them to thoroughly understand and evaluate their property and provide us a timeline. We want something in that blighted property owner's own words that says, I understand what I have, I understand what needs to be done, and I say I can have it rehabilitated in 12 months. That way we place that in the file and we can follow up on that. We can check a timeline, we can make sure that they're making progress. And at such point, maybe 12, 18 months, whatever timeline they gave us, if that property hasn't been rehabilitated and nothing's been done, now we have another document in our file that when we go to court, if they contest our taking, we can do something. We have that.
Aaron, is this statement of intent usually given 30 days after the blight declaration?
This is given to any property owner that responds to their blight notice.
But they have to respond.
They have to respond.
And they have to respond within what time frame?
They have to, well, they have to respond, period.
Okay.
So like I said, in that go back to the, so they're issued the notice of blight. So any point up until we file condemnation action on the property, they can respond to the blight notice. They can stop the process. The pre-condemnation letter that is sent to every property owner is something that is not required under the law. We're not required to say, hey, just so you know, we're filing condemnation in 60 days. But it is something that we do because we found it reduces our response to preliminary objections. It's just kind of that, if you didn't take the notice that is legal seriously, maybe you'll take this letter seriously. And so that usually gets us a little bit of response, and then we issue them the statement of intent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next one. And so this is a slide deck that I'm working on in preparation for Homes Within Reach. But this is what a sample of what is put together for the Planning Commission that kind of outlines the declaration date, the property, when it's had code violations, what years of taxes are delinquent, when the utilities were disconnected. You know, as if you would go and, you know, as board members go to the city's YouTube channel and watch a BPRC meeting, you know, you can see where some of these are, you know, code enforcement will identify the utilities have been cut since 2008, you know, and so a lot of times that's an indication how long the property's been vacant, and it's just a matter of getting there. And Aaron knows how much we're trying to push to identify all those vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties within the city, but we're not getting there. You know, it's just a slow process with the limited resources that, you know, code enforcement has. So, yeah, I know that's a lot in a short period of time, and it's a very complex and detailed process, you know, but it's certainly something that, you know, we take extremely serious.
Does the timeline or the number of days notice and so on, does that fall under a state code or laws, or is this something that was developed locally?
So the 30-day notice is under the urban redevelopment law.
Okay.
That is the minimal amount of time that we're required to give a property owner before we file condemnation. And like I said, in most cases, I would have to go back and pull the data, but we typically, it's 1-2 years before we would file condemnation against a property. So they have a substantial amount of time to do that.
So we're following the minimum requirements. It's just that just because of resources and personnel,
Yes.
it could be longer then.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. In the past, you know, when you go back 3-4 years before 2017, really when the land bank was created, and of course, you know, we were able to leverage those funds, we were taking on average 5 to 6 properties a year with CDBG funds through the city. So our blight mitigation efforts were minimal at best. So, you know, right now with the ARPA funds, the land bank funding, we're able to, you know, of course, increase that number and hopefully, you know, try to rid as many of these vacant and abandoned properties. So that, yeah. Any other questions?
Appreciate the presentation.
Yeah,
That was very good.
It's helpful because sometimes citizens ask us, and you know, it's good to. And is this information available, or or could some of this be available like on a website or
Brochure or something?
Yeah, there is some, the flow chart that was in the beginning of the presentation is on the website.
Okay.
Once this presentation is completed, I can certainly, you know, have it added to the website. That's, you know, certainly a possibility, but there is information there, and all our contact information is there. So we want to educate, you know, the public, you know, on these. I know we, you know, go into that pre-condemnation letter. Unfortunately, we see a lot of times a homeowner or property owner will receive that pre-condemnation letter, and we'll see it on Craigslist, Facebook, whatever the case would be, in an effort to dump that property because they see the pending condemnation action. So, you know, we're certainly evolving as owners try to find out some other way to circumvent our process.
Okay, good.
As for our future, and first of all, the presentation was excellent, very comprehensive, particularly in the chronology of how things are done. I think in our letter that we send out to these owners, perhaps we could refer them to an actual website or our website so that they can pick up this information, because they can be more proactive on their end, which is what they need to do when we have situations like this coming about. I just think that that's important for them. We know how delays are, particularly in personal lives. So that was good. Thank you.
And yeah, certainly take a look at that and see how we can better provide them some resources to get the information.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Next business item, financial management software.
You want me to start? All right. So over the last, well, and Tracy informed me, probably last 6 months, Mr. Scalise had asked for, the comparison budget versus actual, and so as April started the year and tried to figure out and navigate that, we've certainly been looking and running into the issues with that. And so as the board's aware, we made the transition to QuickBooks Online last April, under the previous staff member to April and into April, and so there's been some issues with that, and so we've been trying to work through that, and a lot of that comes with the process and just the sheer magnitude of what some of the grant funds that we have require. And so that's kind of where the fiscal consultant thing came up last year, just to try to get some best practices about how the process will be. But so fast forward to the last 6 months, Tracy and April have been looking at trying to see what other financial softwares are out there and what we can have that might work better for us and giving our fund accounting process that we utilize. And so they've identified 2 possibilities, and so we've been meeting with them over the last 2 months and trying to see what would work best. And we're kind of at the point that they've given us some pricing. We've asked them to sharpen their pencil. We've trying to meet with some of their current customers to see what they have, and in the meantime, we of course met with Natalie and Amy and got the information on classes within QuickBooks and some different things that maybe, can be done internally within our processes that would help clean some things up. So we're kind of in a tough spot right now, and that's kind of where it's here for the board, not really today, but maybe later on this week or next week we could get together to discuss it more in like a study session. In order to make a move, if we wanted to have a system up and running for January 1st, so we didn't have that mid-year switch over, we would have to have a system and a contract signed by the end of August to allow for a 4-month implementation. Both of the identified vendors require roughly a 4-month period to get that up and running. So we would have to make a decision. But then looking back, now we're like, okay, we have QuickBooks, we have classes, maybe we can make a switch. So it's really juggling that, what's best for the authority, the financial aspect of an ongoing maintenance on another software versus what we currently pay and what, so that's kind of where we're at. And I'll let Tracy talk about a little bit about what she's found in that.
So, as Aaron said, I think I was day 3 when I started looking into this and trying to figure out budgeting. QuickBooks is such a good product for a for-profit entity. They just don't. Not only are they not great for nonprofit, it has to be tweaked a little bit. It's absolutely not geared towards fund accounting. So. These other programs there's just a significant cost involved in it. And I think we might have to adjust what our expectations are with it regarding, I know Mr. Scalise, we had talked about you all having one report in front of you. It may end up being like the profit and loss for the LHRD and the profit and loss for ARPA, that kind of thing. Just to kind of keep everything separate. We are, after speaking with Natalie Eberline, we are updating some internal processes there so that we can maybe adjust some things that was passed down to April but doesn't necessarily work with QuickBooks Online. They're 2 totally different beasts, and we're coming up on some. It's difficult because you never want to get into a position of hey, Blackbaud looks really good on this end and NetSuite looks really good on this end, but are we going to end up in the same position that we are now because both of those are geared towards for-profits? So I guess I'm wondering where you all stand on giving us the ability to kind of see where this classes takes us. The problem with that is if we don't want to do a mid-year transfer, which is fair, then I don't know that we would have enough time to have another software platform up and running. So I guess I'm wondering how you all feel about that and what your preference is regarding, and it not now, but in a study session, like something for you all to think about where you are in terms of, can we wait and see if this that we're already paying for, and we've already paid a substantial amount of money to transfer over and to learn and to have different things happen. Are you willing to wait for that to see if that pans out, or is it something where you all want us to move on?
So thanks, Tracy. So I think, my question to the board is, are you open to a study session to discuss this further? And certainly we could provide you the two options that we have and do it, kind of an overview of what they have, what they provide, and currently kind of even look at what QuickBooks has, but really, if that is the case, really in the back of your minds, what reports are you looking for? I know, as has mentioned, a budget versus actual, and we can talk further about it. So, I'm just, if the board is open to that, we could have Cynthia push out some times that we could do a virtual study session and kind of talk through that. Because I know in person might not be necessarily easy over the next week or so. It'd be easier, probably virtual for everybody, would be my thought. So, open for comments or such.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we should have a study session sooner rather than
agreed.
later. If even there's a possibility that we need to jump on something new, I'm all for, cost, being conservative with spending as well. So I'm open to having, this classes thing, be an option, but don't want to have anything limited to us by waiting longer than necessary.
Right. And I think that spending a considerable amount of time researching and getting it right. I mean, I understand you don't change software programs every year, like, you just don't do that. I mean, when you make it, you're in it for 5 or 10 years once you make your decision. So I think that we want to spend a little time and effort and resources. The obvious question, of course, is I know that we belong now to the Pennsylvania Association of Housing Redevelopment Organizations, PARO, not PARA?
PARA, Pennsylvania Association of Redevelopment Housing and Redevelopment Authorities.
Okay. And not that every organization is identical or similar, but
right.
What are best practices out there?
Yeah, we had reached out to that group and received some recommendations. Okay. So that's certainly where
maybe
we
that
have
helps
gone.
narrow it down from 60 down to 6 or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, we did receive 3, and ironically enough, they're the 3 that we're looking at. So it wasn't the tiebreaker, I think, that we were hoping for.
Yeah. Any thoughts, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, I certainly concur that we need to move forward. I belong to several nonprofits, and QuickBooks is not conducive for nonprofit reporting. I would like to see us make a difference.
And if you're getting sticker shock, I can have a side conversation about what we're looking at the university level. Talk about. So I understand. But yeah, please,
okay, we'll circulate
some dates then, and however you want to handle
absolutely.
it. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is we as board members are fiduciaries of citizens' investments, and I hate to use the phrase taxpayer dollars all the time, but we are we're trusted with public funds. Yep. And public trust and the confidence of citizens for the operation of this organization into perpetuity.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. We'll get some dates and suggestions out there.
we feel your pain, and we want to help you along.
Thank you. That is all I have.
All right, any other business or anything? Just trying to remember, I try to keep up with everything, and I get this and land bank mixed up sometimes, so if I can't come up with questions, but I think we're good. There's nothing else. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to put another 10 minutes on the meter. We would not want that. That would be another quarter, 25 cents. Oh, it's expired anyway, so we'll see how it goes on.
Is she out there?
Who knows? But if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.